I'm so excited to have one of my clients on our show today. We have Jessica here with us, and I'm always so grateful for my clients for coming on the show, allowing me to interview them, being open and courageous to sharing their story because I know how impactful these stories are and how much it helps other women in the trying to conceive community who maybe are struggling, having challenges, and just know that there is hope out there for you to have your successful journey. So, without further ado, I'm going to be interviewing Jessica today. Jessica and I started working together in the summer of 2022. So, I'll just throw it over to Jessica so she can share her story. Well, first, hi Jessica, how are you?
Hi. Hi.
Thanks again for being here. And I'd love for you to just share your fertility journey before we started working together and kind of how you came to finding me and start on a journey for us being together.
Sure. So, well, first off, I got engaged a little bit later in life. So, I went to grad school for 5 years, and so it just put me what I felt like behind a lot of my peers, I guess, in terms of finding a partner and starting a family. But anyways, I was 36 by the time I got engaged, and February of 2020. So then COVID hit. My
Mm.
engagement lasted. I'm like, I'm finally engaged. And then,
And the universe was like,
um,
nope.
yeah. So probably waited a little bit longer than we normally would have to have the wedding and all that. But so I was 38 by the time I was married and really, settled and ready to have a family. So once I was married, I was sort of ready to go and expected to get pregnant right away, which didn't really happen exactly. So we tried for about 6 months. I think somewhere in there, about 2 months in, I suspect I had a chemical pregnancy. But then right at the 6 month mark, because of my age, my doctor had referred me to start thinking about doing IVF. So I was actually getting all the testing started for that, went on my honeymoon, came back home and discovered I was pregnant. So I was elated about that, and then unfortunately had a early loss at about 8 weeks. And so that was really tough because I was just in a bad headspace and felt really angry that I would, be so happy and then have it taken away. And that's when I decided to work with Nora, and ended up getting pregnant within the month of starting my one-on-one program. So
Yes, yes. So what was the timing from the you were on actually first I want to ask, let's rewind back for a moment. I would love to hear your experience with your doctor. So when you started on the pregnancy journey, so you got engaged, COVID hit, things kind of slowed you down. You ended up getting married. You said 2022, right? And then you went on your honeymoon and then you got
mhm.
pregnant. And
Yes.
then when you went, so before you got pregnant, you went to the doctor. Did you go to your OBGYN? Did you go to your primary care physician? Who did you go to get some advice? And at what time frame did you go?
I went, I would say, about 4 months into trying, because
Hmm.
I was really kind of surprised that I hadn't gotten pregnant right away.
Hmm.
More so because, we learn our whole life that it's so easy to get pregnant. And
Yes.
um, my mom had talked to me about, when my dad and her decided to have me, that was like 2 months, and then there I was. So I just wasn't expecting it to take as long as it did. So yeah, I think it was about 4 months of trying, and I started going to the OBGYN, and he was seeing me regularly about once a month just to kind of check in and was giving me tips on sort of timing of intercourse and things like that, to make it happen. And after 6 months, we decided that it was maybe time to look into IVF or alternative methods. There was some concern because although my husband and I hadn't been really trying, I had been off birth control for about 2 years at that point. I think I stopped birth control right around the time we got engaged, just to give my body time to be off it and balance out. So although it had only been about 4 or 5 months of trying and not getting pregnant, the doctor said it was a little bit concerning that it had really been like 2 years, and I hadn't gotten pregnant yet. So
I see. Okay. And so at the OBGYN, did they ask to do like a sperm analysis of your partner at that time? Was any additional tips given on like how to optimize nutrition or any of that? I mean, I think I know the answer. I'm just curious. Every experience is different, so I always like to ask.
We got a probably pretty basic sperm analysis done on my partner that was all normal. And then they did sort of the normal blood panel for me. Then I went in for, I think the first thing I did was like a ultrasound of the pelvic region. And that came back inconclusive, which was really frustrating. They couldn't really determine if I had a uterine septum or not.
Right.
So then I went for an MRI at that point, and they still couldn't decide if I had a uterine septum or not. Then the last step was I went and got, I believe it's called a HSG, where they inject the dye into your uterus and fallopian tubes to see if anything's blocking. And it's a little bit more of an invasive procedure. And the doctor turned the screen to me and said, there is no septum there. Like,
okay. So then it was confirmed there.
So then it was confirmed. And I had heard after doing that HSG test that sometimes it will like flush you out a little bit. And it was within a week after that I got pregnant. But so I had heard that sometimes that sort of does the trick to I don't know what the fluid they inject, it somehow kind of flushes out any debris in there or something. But I did get pregnant like within days after that procedure.
And I guess it was just
time.
And it was, I guess, good because it coincided then also with your ovulation window, because if you maybe had gotten that procedure done in your luteal phase, and then, there would have had to wait until the next cycle of that fertile window. But, okay, good. So now we have kind of like the general timeline of the steps, of moving forward. So, also, I guess I want to, before I start asking you some more questions about your experience in the program and what your biggest challenges and frustrations were, I do want to say, like, throughout this process, it was quite interesting, especially in the last couple of years as I've been coaching clients and dealing with this pandemic that we've been living in with COVID. Because remember, Jessica, when we were going through this process of your partner getting his sperm analysis and trying to, make sure that everybody's taking their supplements and staying on top of their health and being healthy, and you guys also got COVID. You guys got COVID at the time, and then your partner got COVID, and then we're like, we knew your fertile window was coming up. Did we want to conceive? Because there's been some research that shows that if you have a COVID infection, it could potentially impact your sperm parameters. You remember we were like trying to like figure out this whole thing, and then I get a message from you being like, Nora, I got COVID. And I was like, oh no. And then you were like, Nora, I am pregnant.
Yeah. I know. I feel like I lead the most quiet, uneventful life. And then it was just like these 3 months of pregnant, miscarriage, COVID, pregnant again. So It was really threw me off.
Yes, yes, because it's yeah, we don't know how the body's going to react or respond, but it was definitely interesting to watch and to coach, and it's a privilege always to coach my clients, but to be there for you throughout this whole process because also we were trying to navigate like how you were feeling after, what we could do to support and boost your immune system and get you resting and feeding you and fueling with you with all the foods to try and make sure that your body was kind of as healthy and strong as possible, especially in such a new time of just being pregnant. So that
Yeah.
was definitely, I remember that as being something that we were both just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is all happening at the same time.
Yeah, so right after the miscarriage, I had like one full cycle,
Mhm.
just to kind of even my body out, get back to normal. I had just started working with you and kind
Mhm.
of getting my supplements in order and starting to track basal body temperature. And then I got COVID. I had a pretty
Mhm.
bad case of it. I was pretty sick. So that messed up all my temps. And then
Yes.
I was still testing positive for COVID when I got my positive pregnancy test. So
A lot of positives that month.
yeah. So it was kind of like I had been so ready to be pregnant, and then there's kind of this one blip, where I was so sick, and it was like, this is the wrong time to be pregnant.
I know,
Of course,
right?
got pregnant. But
Yes.
luckily everything's okay. So
Yes. Yes. Everything is okay. And you're well
Mhm.
into how far like, where are you right now? So we're recording this in
um
December. Now this will come out in January. So you're now at your,
almost 21 weeks.
yes.
So
Okay. So yeah,
yeah.
second trimester, feeling good,
Mhm.
which
Feeling pretty
is,
good. Yeah.
yeah, nice. So
And
what would you, so go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that at my anatomy scan, I did get some interesting information about COVID during pregnancy, which they were saying that they don't think COVID passes necessarily along to the baby, but they're seeing
Mhm.
this like almost like fibrous coating on the placenta of
Mhm.
mothers that have COVID, that can sometimes like restrict the blood flow and the nutrients getting to the baby, which can sometimes affect growth, like sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, but the doctor was saying it was a good thing that I was vaccinated because he said those effects are lessened,
Yes.
as your body somewhat has a roadmap of how to handle the virus, um,
Mhm.
if you get COVID during pregnancy. So it was sort of interesting hearing what the doctor had to say about it, because it was so early on in the pregnancy when I was
Yeah, it was
when I was
just at the
ill.
beginning. It was like
Yeah, it
just
was.
during conception, literally.
Yeah. So I think they don't really know, like the research is just starting to come out,
Exactly.
but yeah, he had some interesting things to say, I thought.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I haven't even heard that yet. So there's so much new research coming out all the time, right? And so it's so
Yeah.
nice to be able to hear from clients what their experiences are because everybody has a different doctor and every doctor has a different method or has different looks at different research and so on and
Mhm.
so forth. So that's helpful. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say kind of prior to during the time of maybe like those 2 years that you were waiting to I guess you were saying during those 2 years that you were before you got pregnant during COVID, were you actively trying to conceive or was kind of like you guys were just doing your thing every month, having fun, but not necessarily being very kind of strategic about trying?
Well, I was pretty determined to have my wedding before I got pregnant.
Yes.
But I did have a concern that I had been on a birth control for about 10 years at that point.
Hmm.
Um, Not necessarily because I needed birth control during all those years, but I felt really great on the birth control I was on. It just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like evened out my moods, and I didn't have PMS. And so I had just stayed on this birth control for years and years and years because I felt great on it. And so once we got engaged, I just went off the birth control to more so to even my body out, and make sure I was, hopefully in a healthy place to conceive when the time was right. And we weren't actively trying to get pregnant, but we weren't actively
Not trying.
trying to prevent. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was just a decision we made that if it happens before the wedding, it happens, but it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit concerning to my doctor too. But
Right.
um,
And when you came off the pill, was there anything specific that you decided to do with regards to replenishing nutrients, or were you aware of 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 the effects that the birth control could have on the body from being on it for so long when you did get off? Because a lot of people just don't know what you don't know, and it's not out there prevalent in the doctors aren't talking about it. It's not in your
yeah,
regular everyday news. Was there anything that you did specifically, or you just kind of took a prenatal
not,
and was like, nah, I'm just going to live my
yeah.
life, plan this wedding, focusing on the wedding?
Yeah, not really. I just went off it, and I think I wasn't in a headspace at that time where I was actively trying or anything.
Hmm.
So I just thought once we're actively trying, it'll happen right away. And
Right.
um
And I'll think about it then.
yeah, I just wasn't thinking about it at that time. So
Hmm. Hmm. So then what prompted you to invest in the one-on-one coaching program with myself? I guess, now that we know kind of the timing of when we started working together based on your journey and your story, what was your biggest motivation or decision making factor to bring you into uh, a coaching program like this?
well, I guess I had thought about it initially before getting pregnant the first time, and had contacted you and reached
Yes.
out. And then I said, well, I'm about to go on my honeymoon. I'd like to get started, once I get back from my trip.
Yes.
Ended up getting pregnant, um, which I realized once I got home from my honeymoon. So um, held off on doing that. Then, like I said, I had the early loss around 8 weeks. I had a miscarriage, and um, my my I just wasn't in a good headspace. I was having a hard time really staying positive after that. I'm a religious person, so I felt very mad at God, to be honest, that
Hmm.
that I would get pregnant and be so happy and then have it taken away. And I think
Hmm.
really to do the coaching program, in my mind, it felt like it gave me something proactively to do with myself and do with my thoughts, and um, put my energy into, like going through even just the nutrition lessons. It was like this step-by-step process that I could throw myself into, and just have something like tangible after the miscarriage to hold on to, and
Hmm.
say like, okay, I can at least be in control of doing my lessons and my
Hmm.
um uh um nourishing my body as best I can, even though I feel sort of out of control about what happened, and upset about that. So it gave me some place to start in order to move forward and think more positively, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. And you dove right in. Like I remember with even we started because I know it was kind of short period of time before you did get pregnant. We kind of had all these little milestones of, I think like your partner was traveling and then I think you were traveling. There was like also a lot of travel components in there and then COVID happening,
Yeah.
but we were pretty consistent with our sessions at the beginning with getting you cycle charting. And then you were great with nutrition. I kept saying like it's such a pleasure to have you as a client because you also cook all your own food at home. I know, right? Like
Hmm.
based on where you live, there's not too many, I guess, options that are super close by to go out
Yeah.
and eat. You just said you make a lot of make a lot of your food at home. So I would just give you recipes and you would just make all of them.
Mhm.
It was so great. Um,
Yeah, and
and
I
so
I have a lot of fun with that. So that was good for me too about the program, is the new recipes and being able to do something fun with my time and enjoy that. So
I guess again, going back to your previous point about your mindset and putting your energy towards something productive, right? Nourishing your body, but then
mhm.
also participating in creating the food that's going to nourish your body. So it's quite empowering, I find, because you're also learning at the same time, you're also nourishing at the same time. So did you find like a sense of more, I guess, ease or more empowerment, or just having all this extra knowledge? Like, how did it help you mentally?
Yeah, it helped tremendously mentally, and just feeling more like I know what's going into my body.